When I introduce people to the core four sequence, most often than not, they ask me, hey, can I get some more information? But that's not what it's really about. I'll tell you a little bit more inside.
I represent for the West Coast, uptown and back down, and everybody scattered with improper grammar. I represent for the West Coast, uptown and back down, and everybody scattered with improper grammar.
When people are asking for more information, what they're asking me is, okay, how do I use this? And oftentimes they think that it's for someone else. The way that it's used, it's already being used. So here's a question that you can ask yourself. What does this mean for me? What does it mean that my behavior and the behavior that I have that I'm attempting to turn into some sort of skill set, what does it mean that those things are governed by the four in the core four sequence? What does that mean? The idea of conversation is what I'm trying to get through to people. But most people just want training. They know I'm into sports psychology or performance psychology. And so they just want, hey, give me the training. But those things have always been around. You could get training anywhere. There's so many books that's out there. You got a whole lot of people who are qualified, certified, degreed, who have the information that you want. But it's not the information that I'm talking about. Right? I'm trying to primarily bring forth a conversation more than I am trying to bring forth training. Do I have those things? Yes. But that's not the primary thing. Hey, think about this. When people talk about sharing information, right? Like communicating, they said information is being transferred from one thing to another thing, right? And so that transformation of information can happen through verbal, it can happen through nonverbal, like facial expressions, right? And different emotional tones that we have, that we could go in waves, be angry, upset, calm, right? Things are being transferred. Well, if sports psychology and the information that you would like to have is like that, then the core four sequence isn't necessarily about information. But what we have is the vehicle that information goes in that's being transferred. So the core four sequence is the vehicle, not the information. Do I have the information to talk about? Absolutely. But that's not my primary concern. My primary concern is that we're able to spark curiosity and critical thinking of our own self-agency. It's not about telling you how to get better, although we can have that conversation, but it's just to spark your curiosity for that. Your curiosity and your critical thinking of your self-agency. When I was an adjunct professor, one of the things I saw while I was on campus, and even with some of the students that came in to my course, they never really wanted to engage with the information. What they wanted to know is, okay, I need to get this grade, what's going to be on the test? They didn't really want to know in any deep way. So they think that maybe the world of work only really cares about my GPA, but you'll find out fairly quickly they care about your mind being able to think in particular ways. But if you don't engage in information, you don't get it. And I see that with younger people, at least when I was teaching, that's what I saw most. These young people just wanted to just give me my grade, just tell me what I need to know. I pass a test, and then after that, I'll just let it go because I don't really need this, right? I'll tell you a story. When I was, and the reason I know this is because I was that student. I was that student. When I was in my master's course, my professor, if it were not for this professor, I wouldn't have engaged the knowledge that I was learning as much as I did and do. If it were not for her, the way that I actually approach things now wouldn't be. I was just skating through, not a really a great lover of schooling, but I was in school and I wrote my first paper. The professor, her name was Allison Rodius, Dr. Allison Rodius. If it were not for her, writing on my first paper, you write in a convoluted manner and Good attempt at arguing in red ink. Wrote it up. If it were not for that, I don't think I would have. I don't think I'll fully be where I'm at right now, because what that did for me is kind of wake me up. It woke me up. I was just skating through, didn't really engage it really well, and what happened after that is I went upstairs into where all the like the student lounge for grad students, and there's a place where all the papers were, and so I went in, pulled out a paper that was an A paper, and I sat down and I read it, and I realized, hey, I can write like this. This is not anything crazy special. I just didn't apply myself. And right after that, I went into our reading and writing department and asked them for some information. How can I learn how to write better? How can I learn how to read better? And it taught me how to read critically. It taught me how to write critically. Am I good? I'm not crazy good, but she sparked that for me, and she made me go a little bit deeper in myself, because I'm competitive. You tell me I write convoluted, okay, let me see if I could get that done, right? And it changed me. It absolutely changed me, because guess what? It's not the information that did it. The information was always there. It's me that needed to change. And so the question becomes, how do you get people to stop skimming the surface and to go a little deeper? And the deeper has nothing to do with the information. See, the information was always around me. It was me. It's you that have to get that curiosity. You have to spark that curiosity. And that's what the Core 4 sequence is attempting to highlight. That's what it's for, primarily. That's the purpose, is to spark curiosity instead of just feed you information. Because the information is always around, always around. You go anywhere, the self-help industry, and even the sports psychology knowledge sphere, there's no loss of books that you can get to get that information. And I know people who are just serial readers of sports psychology books. They're not in the field. I can understand people in the field, but these are just regular folk, like students, athletes, parents who want to understand it, but they have the information, but they're not applying it because they're still looking for this information that's going to be some sort of, oh, this is it, let's get it. And it never works that way. It's about you. And so that's what the Core 4 sequence really is for. It's about getting someone to understand their self-agency. And then we use conversations to see if we can spark the curiosity for them to figure out other things that they may want to know. All right, so let's say someone understands their self-agency, and now they have this desire to go and get their skills. They turn their behaviors into some sort of skills that's going to be of value for some sort of role that's in our society, within our world of work, right? Is that it? Is that everything? Because this section of every single one of my videos kind of goes a little bit deeper into what I kind of believe. So it gets more into this supernatural or immaterial or more values-based perspectives. But is that it? So you have your skill. Think about people who have gotten to the height of their skill set, right? And they go and they make a whole bunch of money, or they are someone who's extremely special. And what happens? Usually, right, the story is, oh man, I thought it would feel different. There got to be more than this. Got to be more than this championship. Got to be more than money. And that's what we're finding out. Not only finding it out just in these arbitrary anecdotes, but we see that within our corporate life. So you're seeing corporations right now are building their companies based on values, because the young people today, or I would just say the progressive nature of our humanity, we're recognizing that values are more important than these things, these accolades. And we're seeing it clearly. People are attaching themselves to companies that have value-based end goals. They're looking for purpose. And what's interesting about that is when I think about the church has been doing this for a long time, right? And what I find interesting, and this is a critique, I guess, in some ways. Yeah, it is a critique. Um, what the church have done in some ways, we created some sort of social institution where folk could come in, and then we have this organizational arm that it really is an organizational structure that helps us to be charitable in a systematic way, right? And we call that kingdom work, right? And my critique is not with the actual organizational structure that helps us be charitable in a systematic way. That's not my critique. My critique is in the tethering of that to kingdom. And I'm not saying that it's not kingdom, but what it feels like as a person who sits in the pew as a layperson, what it feels like is like you. So here's the deal. Someone says, "Hey, I need you to gives for this kingdom work." And it seems other than, right? It seems other than me. So you're saying give to this kingdom work, and it's good that you have this organization, but what's happening? We're acting as if the conversation that a leader is having with his congregants or her congregants, like that's not kingdom. That's what it feels like. That's what it seems like. And and one of the ways that I began thinking about this, I was listening to Dr. Tim Mackie, and one of the points he made about the term kingdom is that it's more of an action, more of a verb than a noun. Although if you are reigning, there's some place that you do reign, but it's the reign of God. So I use reign of God instead of kingdom of God, and you see something very unique. If the kingdom of God or the reign of God is only in this organizational structure that helps folk be able to systematize their charity, um, is that the case? Is that the reign of God? See, the reign of God is also the space in between every interaction that you have. And if we don't separate that out, what's going to end up happening, or what I feel is already happening, is that people who have created such organizational structures that are very helpful to society, they find themselves doing things that can be detrimental to individual folk, and we let them get away with it because they're doing such great things in society. Yeah, we have this organization, and so you could overlook me mistreating this person because that person isn't as important as I am. That's the idea that can be happening there, and what I'm afraid that we're missing, that the reign of God is over the person who is running that organizational structure and any other person that they meet. God reigns over the space in between. We see that in chapter 1 of what we're talking about. God reigns. And if he's not reigning in the way that you interact with folk, or you think that you're better because you have created some organizational structure that helps us to systematize our charity, you are overlooking or pretending that God is not reigning over you. And you see some of that in some of the unfortunate incidents, especially within evangelical world. Like, look at Jerry Falwell. We could point out people who think in some ways, or it seems that way from the outside looking in, that they are above the fold. They are above everyone else because they have done such great things within society. But if you act as if that's the kingdom of God, and that people have to submit and give to this thing so that you're able to do what you need to do, and not recognize, because I'm not against the organization itself, and not recognize that the kingdom of God, like God reigns over the interaction you're having with the people on a daily basis, then I think we're missing some very deep and some very powerful understandings in the way that we interact with each other. And I think I want to leave that there. I just wanted to share that, and I'm going to go into next week. We're going to talk a little bit about the scriptural story of Nebuchadnezzar, or Nebuchadnezzar. That's how you say his name, because it's the same thing. Although this is in the scriptures a heathen king, but we're going to go into that. Like, what does it look like when someone feels that what they've built is much more important than the interactions that they have with people on a daily basis? And what is it that God reigns over? We'll talk about that next time. Well, until then, God bless, and establish your journey.
I represent for the West Coast, uptown and back down, and everybody scattered with a proper grammar. Kick back the big track, I flip stacks and double. I make scraps to get racks, or big sacks to fumble. I whip rap to get that, no lip smack, I'm humble. I hit racks like 6 packs, I hit racks like the corner, love the hustle, ambition consistent like arm set.